Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel and video game news. Today is Monday, February 27th. So on Friday I ended fairly early because I had an appointment that just went weirdly, ended abruptly, started abruptly. And then to make up with that, I did a Saturday stream, which honestly, doing a Saturday stream kind of worked fairly nicely. I got a decent amount of views. So if there was, for some reason, some idea in which I could stream on Saturdays, I might consider doing that. I don't think that would be just an instant decision that I would make right now, though, because it's not like there's any new video game news that happens on even the afternoon times of Friday. So even if I'm streaming like early, 8 in the morning, 10 in the morning, there's a survey here that I guess we could do, but it doesn't seem like it's going to reward you if you do fill out that survey. And then the XYZ event is on, and it doesn't matter. It's nice to know it's an option, but in practicality, I don't think I would choose to go from Monday, Wednesday, Friday to Monday, Wednesday, Saturday. But it's nice to know that's an option, at least. We have one more day in the month, since it's February 27th, and there was only 28 days in February, which means I need to do everything here, including the solo mode. I also have a Duel Live. Power Pros collab was only 3 things. Festival February has all been done, and generally speaking, I think I just need to play ranked. I don't think there's anything else to it. So we got a couple new cards. Some of these visually I understand and I recognize. But yeah, the special Saturday stream let me catch up on all the news and set up the videos to be turned into YouTube Shorts, even though I didn't actually run YouTube Shorts and run my macro to make YouTube Shorts, which I should do, because very possibly now one, if not more, of those time slots are running out of content. Let's see. We have a decent amount of gems. I don't want to just immediately spend them just because I have them, but there is a decent candidate here to buy this secret pack, which we have 28 days left of. Let's see about this secret pack. A little less likely that I would want to buy this secret pack. So over the weekend, otherwise, 41 days, and 9 days. So the last thing to consider would be this one, I guess. I did play a little bit of Prey, but in all fairness, I would say I didn't really do that much. Let's go with this. We'll go down here since we don't have that much time. Now, this is a selection pack, not a secret pack, so all 8 of the cards in this selection pack are specifically from this category, I think, which does double your chances of pulling cards that are of some level of importance, or at least somewhat more recent. The thing about playing gacha games like this is that while you may play your first 2 or 3 years of the game if you're a free-to-player and be incredibly behind the curve, usually, if you do the dailies, you'll eventually get above the curve to the point where you'll have 3 copies of all 10,000 of the Master Duel old cards prize pool, and you'll probably not have any real need to focus on anything other than the newest of expansions. So focusing on the newest things, particularly for this card game, is always the right move. And you really wouldn't have to be a whale player spending a lot of money to buy the Master Duel packs themselves. There's just so many legacy cards that aren't playable in the current meta. We're getting a lot of news here, but noticeably not a single secret key. Maybe we'll get a secret key from this ultra rare. Nope. It'll be a harder decision by a little bit if I need to make another 10 packs around this expansion. And all these new cards, very possibly not leading to really anything, because I very possibly will not bother to try and build a deck around any of these cards. There's still probably a decent argument around getting this and buying 10 more packs. There's even like normal cards here that we don't have. That being said, there is also a decent amount of cards that we have like 6 copies of, so I think it'd be best just to leave it at that. Yeah. You really would have to be a whale to buy the 7,000 draw pool. And then, arguably, if I was going to do something else, I could consider this. And do 10 packs of that. Or consider this and do 10 packs of this. As far as Prey is going, I think it is speeding up and improving a little bit now that I'm done with the crew quarters section. I think I'm probably somewhere close to halfway through the narrative, and very possibly even more through the entirety of the game as far as the areas to visit, because I visited an extra area, maybe 2 even already. There is one thing that I think it is reasonable to spoil at this point, and it's something I think new players should know. Ironically, I have complained a lot up until this point in the pre-recorded footage of there not being like mind-controlled zombie like humanoid characters. Eventually they do show up in somewhat greater numbers. Those humanoid characters, if you are going to try and not kill them, need a specific null wave grenade. And even at that, you still have a high chance that you're going to accidentally kill these mind control humanoids. And I think the game is actively giving you opportunities to not do that with the null wave grenades, but not really telling you that or making that as obvious. I have no reason to play the XYZ Festival at all, so we're just playing standard with my Zodiac Tri-Brigade deck because it's the one I know the best. So slight spoiler, always have null wave grenades that will nullify psionic abilities, and you're going to sometimes be attacked by multiple groups of those people, so try to get them all somewhat close, but that's hard because they're going to run towards you, and if they get too close to you, their heads tend to explode. And usually there is another kind of enemy around the area that you're just going to have to straight up run away from and ignore while you're trying to save as many humans as you can. I feel like there's possibly an achievement for saving as many humans as possible. There very possibly are other actions that cause the death of humans, and there's a statistics as far as humans killed, which doesn't seem quite as accurate as it might have been. I would say the Prey definitely has some problems in that on the main path there's some story, but the story is messy and often told out of order. I'm having a real hard time trying to figure out if the character you're playing as was in a relationship with this other girl, which, yeah, I guess if you played as a male character it would have been a heterosexual relationship, but I picked a female character, so it's now a lesbian relationship, which is interesting because then the girl, if I'm understanding the story right, the character you were playing as broke up with this girl, and then she went with this rebound girl. So I wonder if you played as a male character and broke up with her, would it have been a rebound guy? And would they have just swapped the gender of the other character? It's a possibility, I suppose. Or it might have been just a completely different guy anyways. But the whole story is muddled and messy, and you're getting it through notes and emails, and it's just like there needed to be a way that you could at least go back and address your notes. Before. Yeah, I would say to be able to just address your notes and get the narrative in a linear pattern, even on a second reminder, would have been incredibly helpful. And it's just not an option. And it's not just that one relationship. There's also a relationship with your brother that's kind of the main story, your relationship with two computer AIs. There's other characters and employees in the business that you run, that you're following. And it's just like, it's a lot of people that you want to have a lot of story around, and yet there is also an element in which they don't really have the ability to animate faces emoting and moving, so you don't see other characters' faces except for when you're seeing them on tiny little screens in the top right corner of the monitor. And man, if Prey had gotten rid of all of its junk nonsense that you're running around collecting to recycle into materials to build more bullets for a long time, and eventually I just upgraded my shotgun, and at this point I've upgraded almost every gun I have. So I'm getting like one-hit kills on the medium level enemies with the shotgun, and that has severely reduced the need for bullets, which means then I can just use the resources to make other weapon upgrades and upgrade other weapons, or get other upgrades to upgrade my skills. But yeah, you spend, I would say, at least 50% of the entire game of Prey so far has been searching drawers for a way too wide variety of junk, just vendor trash, when it would have been much better to have more of a linear story and just more characters walking around actually talking to you, or doing the Bioshock and having ghosts walk around and watching the ghosts, even though that wasn't even a great thing in Bioshock. Almost in every comparison to Bioshock, Prey, which is a much newer game, fails. It doesn't tell as interesting a story and doesn't really do much of anything. Which doesn't make it a bad game, it just makes it a boring game and a dull game. I'm glad I'm probably past the 50% point, because there's little more I think it could throw at me, honestly. Even the nightmare characters I think I could handle fairly easily now. So I will probably start to fight them when they show up. There was a Pokemon Direct, apparently, and one of the things they announced was Pokemon Classic, Pokemon Trading Card Game Classic, which doesn't seem like it's actually a digital thing. If anything, it seems like it is a packaging of the classic Pokemon Trading Card Game starter sets, or 3 decks, and a table. Which there's nothing inherently, if it is what I think it is, which is just a physical device, there's nothing inherently here that would stop you from playing the more modern version of Pokemon Trading Card Game. The board might be a little bit off, as it were, but it's basically the same cards. And so it really just seems like what they decided to do was have something that said Pokemon Classic that they could sell in the Pokemon centers, and this is what they created. It's not a digital version of just playing the old Pokemon Trading Card Game before they added like VMAX cards and things like that, and it's not an announcement of a new division in official Pokemon trading card tournaments, as far as I can see. Honestly, the page does a real bad job of explaining what it is. But it's a product designed for fans to enjoy friendly battles anytime and anywhere. Features a foldable, playable, portable 2-player game board, card placement zones for your active Pokemon, bench Pokemon deck, discard prize cards. Now, I don't know if you use prize cards anymore in Pokemon, because that was the gambling aspect that people really didn't want and really should have never been included in the first place. It was a bad idea even day one. Bad idea even day one. I need to remember to play here. Now, what notice here is doesn't really even talk about specific cards or any decks that you actually get. You can hold up to 3 decks, and a toolbox has a compartment at the center, and it can hold up to 3 decks and a toolbox featuring accessories you need for battle. Recount the days of the Venusaur, Charizard, and Blastoise from base sets running wild. The 3 specially constructed decks featuring fully evolved Kanto Forest Partner Pokemon. These decks feature newly printed cards that go alongside the classics, letting you... So it does include some cards. 3 Pokemon trading card decks, 3 deck boxes featuring energy symbols matching the things. I got flipped downward somehow. So yeah, it doesn't look like much, but it probably is a decent thought as far as, hey, which thing should you buy if you want to get a kid into Pokemon trading card games. I definitely have seen listings for decks and starter decks and been confused as to which one you actually would want to buy if you're trying to get a kid into Pokemon trading card game. And honestly, even at that, this isn't a very good offering because of the fact that it is the old cards and going to be more in line with the old style of Pokemon trading card game. You kind of need to play with the more modern decks to be playing the same game that other kids their age would be playing. Alright. Try this again. So we activate this. Face up. Activate this. Go ahead and activate this. That way we can toss this and gain some attack damage by attaching this. Activate that. Go to battle mode. Attack directly. Go to phase 2. Summon Zeus. It's a lot of button clicking, but it works. Getting a turn. CD Projekt Red has some job listings, some new job listings here, which there's seemingly quite a lot of job listings on their page, but there was 3 specifically that they were pointing out. Molasses flood. Interesting. There was a great molasses flood that happened in the United States a long time ago. Somebody built a cheap, unsafe tank right in the middle of a city, and then the tank burst open because they didn't have a clue how to build the tank safely to hold in all the molasses that they were storing and cooking. Let's give this one a chance and see how this works. Should probably activate this anyways, but we'll see if this does it. So basically all that really tells you though is that CD Projekt Red is still being ambitious about hiring people and I guess continuing to make games, which is good to know, but it doesn't really mean as much as it might seem because there have been several instances where people are hiring at a video game company right up to the second that they shut down the doors and lay off as many people as possible. Not that I think that's what's I don't really think that's what's going to happen at CD Projekt Red, but I wouldn't be surprised if it did happen. It would be more of a case of just CD Projekt Red giving up for one reason or another after struggling to get like Cyberpunk to be a good game. For the most part, if something like that was going to happen, I'd imagine it would be because they lost like the rights to The Witcher. If CD Projekt Red could not make any more Witcher games, and maybe they lost Cyberpunk, or they couldn't sell the old Witcher games, that would be a devastating blow. Moving on, there is an Atelier franchise sale up to 67% off, which for Japanese RPG games in particular, you're not going to get a major discount, and the games are inherently selling themselves as extremely long experiences anyways. So you could get Atelier Ryza 1 for $30, Atelier Ryza 2 for $30, and Atelier Ryza 3 for $60 pre-purchased. I'm not sure if there's really any DLC in these games that would bump it up, though. That would be inherently a thing to test, is that if you don't buy the deluxe edition, are you then potentially just buying everything back when it's discounted? Like, this season pass says it's 50% off for $30, so you'd have to figure out what the digital deluxe edition is and figure out if it is a better deal to get that for $35. It probably is. It's probably easiest to get the digital deluxe edition first and then get the rest of this stuff. Some of these are just costumes selling for $1.50, but also some of this looks like actual gameplay stuff, weapon skins, actual story stuff, free background music pack. The Ryza series, probably the series that would be best to move through. Although what's funny is they're calling it the Secret series. Secret Hideout, Secret Fairy, Secret Key. Versus the Atelier Sophie series, which is a little bit older, which they're calling the Mysterious series. And this is like 3 games in one. Let's see, for $60, which would be this game, and this game. But yeah, $60 versus $75 if you bought it individually. Then they also have a Dusk series, which must be the second oldest game. Or it seems like they're going backwards. And you can definitely see, as these series are fairly old and fairly long, in that you have several of these with DX at the end, so they were Nintendo DX games originally. But you can see that there's different characters and a slightly different animation style. Like, it gets a little bit flatter, closer to early 2000s animation style versus more modern animation styles. A lot more color, and man, I can just not hover anywhere here, can I? A lot more color and detail and variety in the costumes for the last 2 series, and then it just gets a little bit duller, a few less colors. The costumes are a little bit simpler. The Arland series, on the other hand, is more pink in its focus. The problem you run into something like this, though, is there is, I probably should just use these cards so I stop getting prompted. Otherwise I'm going to accidentally surrender. It creates yet another problem where why play 15 games in the Atelier series when you could potentially play 15 games in the Dragon Quest series, which would make a little bit more sense, or when you could play 15 games in the Final Fantasy series. Perhaps there is a little bit more focus compared to Final Fantasy playing in Dragon Quest or the Atelier series. This guy is just going to do this every turn, isn't he? Alright, well, let's get rid of him. Then. No matter what you do, it is going to be a big commitment. There's just no getting around that. Summon Zeus and then we can end our turn. And then end the turn. So yeah, this Nelki and the Legendary Alchemist is more of a city builder side game and doesn't even have the Atelier title on it. And it's the only one so far that I've seen is actually discounted to 67%, which highlights how these sales often go, is it's the oldest or the side game that in no way really connects to the rest of the things that are available. And this Atelier Marie remake is coming soon, so they're advertising that. And as far as other Koei Tecmo games, some of them seem to be on sale, but mostly they're trying to get you to pre-purchase Fatal Frame Mask of Lunar Eclipse, which is also a remake. They're trying to get you to pre-purchase that at full price. But in all fairness, I think this is the first time this is coming to PC, so you can't really complain about it. Here's a Fate game from the Fate Stay Night series, although this is the Fate / Remnant, Samurai Remnant series, which, yeah, that's weird. Or Attack on Titan, which they're still making the last season of Attack on Titan, the Attack on Titan anime. They're taking extreme liberties with the idea of a final season, is what I've heard. And for final season part 1, final season part 2 nonsense. Let's see. The Steam Deck was released 1 year, or started shipping exactly 1 year ago today. Says Steam Decks on Twitter. And so they have a little Steam Deck logo here and in the shape of a cake. Notice it's much colorful, lots of sprinkles. Notice also that the Steam Deck logo is very purplish and really does not look anything like Valve or Steam's logos, standing out as its own thing. And then apparently Steam Deck also retweeted that the new game was verified. Alina of the Arena. I imagine that's what Steam Deck mostly does, is just retweet people who are supporting the Steam Deck or talk about software updates. In all fairness, the Steam Deck has done some amazingly good things so far. Like, you can't really deny it. That there was a really high chance that the Steam Deck would have come out and it would have been very underpowered and only slightly better than, say, a Nintendo Switch, and that it really wouldn't have the software support or the hardware to support proper streaming gaming or anything other than streaming gaming. There still is price issues. You can't really get away from that. The Steam Deck is really, really expensive. It's about twice as expensive as a Nintendo Switch, while being more than twice as powerful, but not being in the same walled garden experience that the Nintendo Switch has. Although, arguably, the Nintendo Switch really doesn't have that much of a walled garden experience either, because the eShop, like the eShop on the Nintendo Switch is pretty well open by default, and they don't really encourage or make it super easy to change that. Let's see. Let's go ahead and add this as XYZ material. Actually, I could have gotten the other guy. It probably wouldn't have helped. Yeah. I suppose if the Nintendo Switch was much closer to what the Wii was, or even the GameCube was, and didn't have an eShop, then you could say that the Nintendo was offering something more of a walled garden experience by just not offering anything. Or if Nintendo just did the thing it probably should have done, which is not allowing adult content, or having extremely tight parental controls enabled by default. We really are at a point where when you go into a store and you buy a brand new factory fresh Switch, it should say by default this console only plays games rated E for everyone by the ESRB. To play games past E from everyone, like E10 plus, you have to connect. Your parents must create a Nintendo parent account and modify it and change it to play anything above that. They have to set a different setting. To play anything above that, they have to set a different setting. At the very least, that might annoy a lot of parents, and they may just say it can play all games and no matter what. But yeah, you pretty much have to register your Switch when you install it anyway, so it is just like setting up a cell phone where you have to have an email and set up all of that. So it really does make a lot of sense that should be the default. And Steam in particular, with the Steam Deck, could have implemented similar ideas, and really should. They need to make it a major project to revamp the Steam storefront and get games labeled appropriate for appropriate ages and tagged appropriately. And that's going to take a lot of work, and it's going to require a lot of developers to give a little bit more information, although that may not be that big of a deal. But yeah, the Wild West era of games without age limits are probably going to go away. But even that, ignoring that aspect, the Steam Deck still is offering a lot of good thing, way more than the Nintendo Switch is offering. The only thing Nintendo Switch offers is Nintendo exclusives, and I don't think we're at a point where the exclusivity being a big deal will stop being a big deal. Nobody ever wants to feel left out. And the idea of potentially being left out just because you bought the wrong console, whether you bought a Steam Deck or an Xbox or a PlayStation or a Switch. That's not something that I think would ever change. I feel like I might be rambling a little bit here, but yeah, I knew I was feeling a little sleepy when I started the stream today, but I didn't want to fall asleep and then stream at 10 in the evening either, which would probably be what's going to happen. I still am having weirdness with my schedule, so like tomorrow I probably won't get any pre-recorded footage done either. Alright, well, let's see. The good news is that I sometimes, on rare occasions, can learn. So I have run my macro on a completely different new window, which means once I'm done with this, all the news, the window will be empty, or the window won't be empty, but it will be just a subset of videos to Steam pages to turn into YouTube Shorts. So let's start going through the news. He surrendered. Yeah, we'll potentially get to 100 today if we kept on playing, which I guess is the if. There. But one more win gets to tier 2. If I could get to platinum, I should stop at platinum. Just any victory that gets me to platinum, stop playing at that point. Let it end at platinum this month. Don't risk falling back into gold. So, Video Games Chronicles articles. DualSense Edge controller is now available at Amazon and other major retailers. Baldur's Gate 3 is dated for PC and PS5. And they are rolling out a Xbox release. It would be intriguing to know the logical explanation for this crab-like skinned character as to why one part would be the soft underbelly and one part would be the hard shell, and why there is just effectively these like nipple cutouts here. My guess is the artist probably drew it originally with nipples being exposed, and they said, actually, let's cover up the nipples, and then they added the little blackness there. But yeah, humanoid abs with scaly crab armor, skin everywhere else is a little weird. Of course, in Baldur's Gate, that might be a fairly common character that I just don't recognize or understand. And it might all be very much explained in the lore. Go ahead and toss this. And go ahead and go through all the steps. If only I could do two things at once or have two mice going at once. There's not really a great way in Windows to have multiple mice going. You can have multiple keyboards, but the multiple keyboards are going to just type into the same window that you're focused in, unless you do something really crazy and program a keyboard to not be recognized as a keyboard, and then program the software to directly interact with that. And I guess you could do the same with a mouse too. You can have multiple virtual machines, I suppose, and do things that way. In Windows or in Linux, you could do that. But also, it would also be kind of crazy and difficult to... Let's just cancel that. Interesting that this does not cancel that. Toss that. And there. Just surrender anyways. So apparently that was their only trick. Problem here is I really would have to just be on a win streak of 3 more victories to get to gold tier 1, and then 3 more victories to get to platinum. Nintendo confirmed it won't go to E3 in this year. This is all old news. EA is reportedly polling fans on Dead Space 2 and 3 remake interest. Tales of Symphonia Remastered devs apologized for the game's quality. This is new news. Fans have reported missing textures, crashes, other major issues with the remaster. Which, yeah, that's pretty bad. It was originally a 2004 GameCube game and PS2 game in Japan. And then they're not really doing a good job with the remaster, which, particularly in the case of remasters, there should be no rush and no reason whatsoever that a remaster shouldn't be perfect. One of the things about Prey that also feels problematic is that it seems like they just didn't really care about object placement as much. I found a place where it seems like there's just a missing sink, that they just didn't put the sink texture there. Maybe that's a visual glitch, but then there's also a room that's at an awkward angle, and because it's at an awkward angle, it clips some of the wall through a different wall that is behind that room. There definitely was a room that was full of post-it notes early in the game, and there were just a ton of invisible post-it notes or glitches where you would walk into the middle of an empty section of the room, and there couldn't possibly have been a post-it note that you weren't seeing, and then you would get a blue prompt to pick up the post-it note. Just not really enough polish there. Overall, though, those are kind of isolated incidents, so it's not too bad. I did hit a section where I literally could not get through a maintenance shaft because they put too much height between the floor and the maintenance shaft lip of the door. And so the only way to be able to get into the maintenance shaft is to crouch down, and every time I crouched down, it wouldn't let me do anything. So I had to carry a box, basically, in front of the maintenance shaft lip of the door, and get on the box, crouch down on the box, and then kind of fall off the box and fall forward to catch the lip. Which, yeah, that was annoying, and if I hadn't figured that out, I would have missed some kind of major part of the content that they wanted people to see, and several fights. Although Prey is really just a broken game on that concept anyways, because the fights are not important. When you fight an enemy in Prey, you just kill it, and whatever items it happens to have procedurally spawned into its inventory is what you get as a reward. There's no experience involved in the game at all, when it really feels like that would make a lot more sense, that you would gain experience with each fight and each kill, and then that would let you level up your skills. Or storyline wise, you would get specific abilities as base abilities, and then maybe getting experience would make those base abilities upgradable. Another thing that I probably should spoil about Prey, since I'm talking about it again, is when you get your first alien ability, which, slight spoiler there, it says that you're just below the threshold at which a turret would consider you an alien and start shooting at you. I can confirm now that you can get at least 2 base abilities on the alien and still be under that threshold. I suspect you probably could get a lot more than that. You might very well have to get 2/3 to all 100% of all the alien abilities unlocked before you're considered alien and the turrets attack you. Honestly, if the turrets did start attacking you, really wouldn't be that big of a deal anyways. There aren't that many turrets and they're not that strong. Plus, you could probably hack them and get them to fight on your side anyways, even if you did detect you as an alien. So we need to survive this fight, and I don't think we are going to do that, because this guy will double his attack. Which this guy will double those attacks. And yeah, he's gonna attack, and then I will double this to 8,000. And then he'll direct attack. This isn't a strategy that's played very often, but it does feel somewhat cheaty when you do see it. It's somewhat unfair. In particular, to spoil Prey a little bit more, there is a morph ability that lets you morph into certain objects. For the most part, it's small cups that you need to be able to morph into to get into certain areas. Getting into certain areas doesn't seem like it gives you anything super important, but if you're going to try and see all the emails in the game, or perhaps find all the people, all the corpses in the game, you probably need the morph ability. I walked past at least 2 doors that I could have gotten through. Honestly, it's probably been closer to 5 doors that I could have gotten through with the morph ability had I just taken it very early in the game. But I've been stubbornly not taking it. And honestly, I just don't think there's a way you can play the game and not take any of the alien abilities at all. Maybe there's a way, but on your first playthrough, that's probably not how you're going to want to play. Speaking of apologies, here we have 2 apologies back to back. Blood Bowl 3, developers apologize for server issues and in-game shop concerns. We truly believe that our system is fair, rewarding, and optional. As far as in-game shop concerns, server issues, I assume being something else. And now that the Super Bowl is over, I would have considerably less motivation to play Blood Bowl 3 at this point. Eventually I could see myself getting around to it, but yeah. if I'm going to, if I were going to make some counter programming to the Super Bowl, it probably wouldn't want to be football related at all. And if it was football related, I think I don't know how you do that in video games. It would just be playing Madden, I think, more than anything. Yeah, I probably personally would try to counter program something completely different if I was going to play during Super Bowl Sunday. But that is also making a huge assumption that there's enough of an audience that would want to watch me do something different. Like, my first instinct would be to make a Binding of Isaac Bowl. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and activate this effect. And it can get really slow when you're waiting for the other person to decide whether they want to activate their ability or not. Like, he obviously has something he can activate. Okay, those two. Get rid of. Summon this guy here. Activate this effect here. Summon this guy here. Summon this guy here. Is that 2? Yes. Then that. Then that. Didn't really need to activate the other guy's effect. Let's go ahead and return that one. Although that actually probably was a mistake, wasn't it? Okay. Well, now we can declare attacks. We can kill this. And do this. Ooh, I think I blew my opportunity to summon Zeus, though. Nope. Got lucky there. Video Games Chronicle says Sons of the Forest has sold 2 million copies in its first 24 hours of early access. This is the sequel to the Forest game, which did seem like it was slightly more than just your average survival game. And it did, and I guess now that they're making a sequel, they're continuing to add more to a series there. Let's see. The Pokemon Red and Green soundtrack is currently free to stream. It can also be downloaded for free, but only in Asia. What are you streaming it on? Let's see. It's on the YouTube channel. as a single 57-minute video. Now, noticeably, though, that would be not that interesting to listen to because it is just going to be 8-bit chiptune stuff. You could get a little bit of a nostalgia buzz from that, but I doubt there's too many people that would sit through 57 minutes of that. Even the most modern Pokemon games, I don't think really have that good of a soundtrack. Like Pokemon, not in my mind at least, particularly well known for its sound effects or soundtrack. As Pokemon goes more open world and tries to be more 3D and more polished, I could see there being specific regions with specific background songs. Prey had a section, and again this is a spoiler, where it points itself out to have it makes a special stop to have you listen to some music, and as you're listening to the music it kind of just highlights that there's not a lot of a soundtrack going on for Prey. There's some ambient noise, and there's definitely some elements of environmental storytelling with sounds where you will get spooky sound effects when an enemy might be close, or you get spooky sound effects just when the game wants you to think an enemy might be close. But yeah, no real memorable music playing. For as much as you're reading emails and listening to audio logs of people talking, it's actually a little surprising that there isn't music playing more often. And there's also musical instruments, which would make you think you would hear more music playing. I might randomly have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the stream. That happens far too often. So we might just want to rush and avoid that. Video Games Chronicle says the Final Fantasy creator wants to bring the Fantasian to PC and make a sequel. This would be Hironobu Sakaguchi. It's currently an Apple Arcade exclusive. Now, it's funny to say a Final Fantasy creator is one person, considering how much of Final Fantasy is probably done by teams, and done by different teams at that. Sorry, I'm going quiet here. The next article from Video Games Chronicle says Phil Spencer says Xbox will exist even if the Activision Blizzard is blocked. Quote, it's not some linchpin to the long term. Arguably, this is the wrong thing to say out loud during this Activision Blizzard attempt at acquisitions. I think a better way to respond to a question that would end up giving this same response would be to say we have heavily invested and focused on the Activision Blizzard merger, and if it were to be blocked, which I don't believe it will be, then we would have to rethink our long-term strategy as how we maintain and grow profitability in the future, and whether we can stay as we are as a video game company, or whether we would have to make significant changes. You would want like a nebulous threat of sorts that you might just pull out of the game industry completely, or that you would shutter the companies you already own and fire people if the Activision Blizzard deal doesn't go. You don't want it to be an outright direct threat, but that you would want to threaten it. You would want to say, hey, these countries, if you block us from doing what we want, we're going to take our toys and go home. And that's going to hurt the video game industry way more than anything else. By choosing this response, and frankly none of it matters because it's all just 3D chess, but yeah, it doesn't matter what's true, it just matters what you say, is what I mean by that. By saying it's not a linchpin, you are seemingly making an admission that you've somewhat started to give up and you don't think it's actually going to happen. And that is not the admission you want to make. Netflix, as part of this Pokemon Direct, they announced Netflix is making a stop-motion animated series called Pokemon Concierge. I didn't know it was stop-motion. Netflix was also doing a weird thing where they had one of those award shows that they apparently were streaming it, or on their YouTube channel they have all the video clips of it. It might have been the Screen Actors Guild Awards. It might have been a different one. But yeah, I watched the short trailer here for this, and I didn't even realize it was stop motion animation. I just thought it was a different style of animation as an experiment, which I guess it is a different style, but I thought it was just a different, like, kind of texture rendering in 3D modeling, and it very possibly is still that. The general conceit, as it's explained in a couple sentences, is that you're following, I assume, this girl as she is the concierge at a tropical island resort for Pokemon. So the Pokemon come and they stay at this resort, and you see to their needs and desires, as it were. Which, if anything, it seems like that would be a short-running series, not... It really couldn't go that long before you'd run out of things to do. It might also very well be a series that is incredibly short, like 5-minute mini clips, mini shorts. The video game thing announced was that a 2-part Pokemon Scarlet Violet expansion has been revealed. The Hidden Treasure of Area Zero will be released later this year. And they have like 2 screenshots that they showed. They showed this one. We're in kind of Japanese Yakuza, but not really, because we're still wearing pants so we can ride the motorcycles. So very, very Japanese Lantern Festival feeling and theme there. And then the other one, the other screenshot, seemed completely different. Let me see if they have it here. Let's see, the teal mask, the indigo disc. One coming out in fall of 2023, one coming out in winter. Newly announced DLC Paradox Susine and Paradox Verzion. So, more things in general. Which I don't know if now is even still the time to announce DLC for Scarlet and Violet, because I don't think they could possibly have fixed enough with Scarlet and Violet to bring back a lot of people who, that whatever small percentage that was of Pokemon players who played Scarlet and Violet and didn't like all the bugs and quit or played through it and weren't particularly satisfied. I don't think you're bringing back that small percentage. I think you still have the majority of kids that don't care, and they'll want to come back at this. Noticeably, this is seemingly just the way Nintendo games are going to be going forward, is that there will be a Part 1 DLC and a Part 2 DLC. They're pushing the ideas of having a season pass without committing to actually doing season pass worth of material and content, because Nintendo is slow, to say the least, as far as making content and releasing games. You could speculate that this DLC being released and announced is Nintendo trying to buy some time for a Switch 2 to come out. And that might be the case too, but it might not. Or it may very well be not Nintendo, but the Pokemon Company directly trying to buy some time to possibly start working on the next new Pokemon game and make it smoother and play better. Pokemon in general has been what was very eager to announce a bunch of stuff about a year ago and has been very slow to release some of that stuff. The Pokemon Sleep app is an example of that. This uses the new Pokemon Go Plus device to track the user's sleep patterns. Which, having to buy a device, I think, is a mistake in that case, when it really should be that you could just use the Sleep app as a phone app, and that's it. And maybe you can, and the Go Plus is just additional. But if I was going to if I was going to have a kid sleep to track their sleep patterns, I definitely would just get them a more expensive, like, Fitbit type thing, or potentially even just go with an Apple Watch. Even though those are all very expensive things, I just don't think when you're talking a premium device that is potentially more a fad than proven science at the moment anyways, I just don't see a reason to start on a Pokemon infrastructure unless the Go Plus device is, say, $30, and a Fitbit would probably be $150 to $250. Either way, you also run into a problem where I'm not sure kids really need or want to have watches. Like, you're just, for the most part, going to use a cell phone and sleep tracking via a cell phone app. They could potentially listen to you throughout the night. There are apps like that. They're a little weird, certainly, but they do exist. And I think a phone could probably, on a bedside table next to a bed, It probably could sense you tossing and turning without a special band or device. Let's see if we can pull this off. It really smacks, having a Pokemon Sleep app smacks of just really encouraging a lot of helicopter parents to obsess about their kids' sleep, when if your kid is sleeping all right and not having major problems, there's you probably shouldn't pay any attention to it, because particularly with sleep, while people do have sleep problems, as somebody who has insomnia themselves, I can definitely speak to that. There's not a lot you can do to solve it, as far as I understand. You can get on sleeping pills, but they're addictive, and they stop working as soon as you stop taking them. And I don't see a reason that kids or parents should really be doing that for their kids unless they have major sleep troubles. There are some basic suggestions you certainly can do. Don't have TVs in a bedroom. Don't have light sources, including phones and clocks and any even little LEDs on potentially a Pokemon Go Plus device. Don't have tight-fitting clothing or pajamas, things like that. And have strict times when you start to go to bed, and blackout curtains, things like that. Like, you can do those simple suggestions, but if that doesn't help completely solve it, there's not a lot more you can do. And honestly, overly focusing on sleep could be just as bad as ignoring minor sleep difficulties. You have to be careful of these fad pseudo-medicine type devices. Moving on, the Outer Worlds Spacer's Choice Edition has been confirmed for the PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC. It's an enhanced version of Obsidian's sci-fi RPG, and it's going to be released next week, which I never got around to playing the Outer Worlds. Inherently, I am more and more often having a game on my wish list and not purchasing it or playing it before a full-on remastered version is getting released 4 to 5 years later. But we also need to see an end to that pattern, because it is going to get increasingly ridiculous for people to release a game in 2023, 2025, and then by 2026 or 2027, people are remastering those exact same games. Obsidian's game there is kind of a great example of that being a game that probably didn't need much of a remaster, and arguably it's just a rebundling or a patched version with slight remastered graphics. We're in the Gemetsu articles, by the way, at this point. I don't know if I mentioned that. The asymmetric multiplayer horror sequel Deceit 2 has been announced for PS4, PS5, Xbox Series, Xbox One, and PC. And I never saw Deceit 1. But also, if it's a multiplayer game, it kind of doesn't matter, because I couldn't have played it anyways. Let's see, Deceit came out in 2017. do think I probably saw this, but you can see how this is a fairly rough looking game and definitely could easily be dismissed as just a asset flip horror game, which is probably exactly what I did. Although, in all fairness, back in 2017, I probably wasn't looking at every single game coming out on Steam anyways, so I may have missed it because of that. Same news story from Gamatsu. This year's E3 didn't fit our plans, is the exact quote. Which, if anything, this really does make it just feel like the E3 that's going to happen this year is very much going to be something different. What would really put yet another nail in the already fully nailed shut coffin of E3 would be if the new people in charge, the people who usually run PAX events, launch an E3 and have an E3 now missing all of the major players, or at least the big three, big four players. I guess it would be big three. And yet it still just tries to be exactly like the other E3s that have happened in the past few years, of the ones that have happened over the past few years. I have to assume that they're planning something different, something big, and it is just not kowtowing to the likes of Nintendo or Microsoft or Sony. Which, in all fairness, E3 has been diminishing in its quality, doing the same old thing every year after year, which was kowtowing to the likes of Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo. Right. Probably should stop playing at this point. Might play a little bit off screen to see if I could get up to platinum. It would be nice to get to platinum, but at the moment I'm just not focusing enough on it to pull that off. And like Gamatsu has almost the exact same article as Video Games Chronicle with the exact same screenshot, saying Baldur's Gate 3 Xbox Series version is in the works but held back by technical issues. Quote, "We don't want to get people's hopes up until we're sure we can deliver," which is a nice sentiment, but even just talking about it gets a lot of people's hopes up. Let's see. No. Don't want to do that. Okay. So I can't activate this for some reason. I feel like activating this will probably fail, but we'll try. Yep. It's exactly what I thought was going to happen. Let's see. Grand Blue Fantasy vs. Rising adds Anila, dash attack, and new triple attack mechanics being detailed. So I guess this is Anila, and I guess we're getting an upskirt shot of the character, which is something you don't get very often. There. Not these days, at least. Usually never in the actual promotional artwork. Grand Blue Fantasy Versus overall, I think, is just a fighting game. Let's see what This is from Games. So yeah, here you have anime girl with lots of cleavage and upskirt shots. So they managed to show some thighs, some cleavage, some panties. They know how they're selling that character, certainly. In fact, that's pretty much all they're showing in this brief teaser trailers. Pause on the boobs, pause on the thighs, pause for half a second on the upskirt shot. Honestly, for all the adult games that I see on Steam, I am surprised that there aren't more fighting games that have adult mods or just clothing's getting damaged and destroyed and removed type modes and mods. Even like it would make some sense if there was something like that. It's also a little surprising that there isn't like mods for wrestling games, but there was really only WWE wrestling games and they're not very good. This week's Japanese game releases: Wulong Fallen Dynasty, Rune Factory 3 Special, and more. It's kind of a long list here of physical and digital games this week. It does seem like we're getting more games. Metroid Prime Remastered coming to the Switch in Japan, Dungeon of Endless, Neo Geo Pocket Selection, Volume 2, Rune Factory 3 Special, Scars Above. Yeah, that name is the most memorable part of that game. SpongeBob SquarePants The Cosmic Break, and Wulong Fallen Dynasty. In a very long list of digital-only games. The Master Detective Archives Rain Code details more Master Detectives and the Amaterasu Corporation Peacekeepers. I am increasingly thinking this is just Danganronpa with a slightly different theme, slightly different setting. That Danganronpa very possibly has gotten a little too crazy with its story, and we wanted to tell slightly a different story. Okay. Let's give this a try. I have no idea what he just did, but that seems weird. Whatever. Let's try this again. If for some reason this didn't work, he's really got some strategy here. This is an interesting strategy. I've not seen this before. Arguably, if I paid more attention to Yu-Gi-Oh! What I was doing, this would be the kind of gameplay to save and investigate more as far as just what kind of nonsense is he doing. He's defeating me by making me run out of cards. Yeah, I've lost the game by running out of cards. Crazy. This will be the last game we play today. I'll get any remaining things done off screen. getting demoted to a lower rank too. I need to get 6 victories in 3 streaks of 1 wins. And as far as daily quests, destroying cards didn't happen, trapped cards didn't happen, ritual sync or XYZ summon didn't happen, and solo mode 3 times didn't happen. So potentially I should find something that might do ritual synchro or XYZ summon in solo mode, or do trap cards or destroy cards in solo mode. Otherwise we're gonna have several things I don't get done. Anyways, so here's a screenshot of the game with English language. Here's a screenshot of the game in Japanese. It definitely shows how the Asian lettering takes up less space than the English lettering. Although in all fairness, some of the Japanese language sometimes seems to be a little bit too subtle for its own good in what is actually being said. I have this secret theory as a foreigner, as an English-speaking American, that a lot of Japanese people just pretend to understand what is being said and go along with the flow in a lot of Japanese to Japanese conversations. And that they would be too embarrassed to say, I don't understand what you're saying. Even in English speaking America, most people are too embarrassed or too stubborn to admit they don't understand what was said, even if what was said is potentially total gibberish, and they'll just pretend with it that they understood and go with the flow. So here you have a kid or an anime guy smoking, which is an interesting twist because that's not something you would expect. Looking at the height difference, he may be an anime adult and this may be an anime kid next to it, although it may mean kind of nothing at all. What's funny is this image is blurry and glitched, but I'm not doing that. Like, I do have my blur and I have enabled it so I can blur like that, but this pixelation is either the image is corrupted or there intentionally is a scene where the image gets corrupted, which is possible, but I don't see why you would do that intentionally. Without actually reading any of this, which would be too much of a waste of time for me, all I really am doing is just scrolling down the page to look at the pretty pictures. But that's Master Detective Archive's Raincode Pretty Pictures on Kometsu if you want to check that out. Let's see. Phoenix and Guar Studio announced a new recruit induction games, Hook and Kaiju, Indra's X-Cycle, and Shiguro Planet for PC. They're due out free of charge starting April 7th. They were made by new recruits of the developer Guar Studio, so almost like, here's new employees, let's have the new employees work on something to get them up to snuff and then put out their games for free. It's the Guar Studio of Bandai Namco Studios as induction projects. The idea of having induction projects, I don't think it really makes a lot of sense to me. But it does let them potentially give work to new employees without having them mess up, I guess, Final Fantasy at a certain level. what is interesting is you look at each of these animations, and just looking at the screenshots on YouTube, because I'm not going to bother to click play on any of them, you have very different animation styles, and it really does highlight how it isn't all just the anime you see on late night TV or in Japan. There are other animation styles that exist, particularly I imagine for game developers. But these tend to not be the most popular animation styles, and if you're making a game trying to sell to the popular masses, it makes sense to make everything a little bit more uniform. This is really the only one I would even want to look at. Seems like it's a 4-player bicycle parkouring thing. By them being on unicycles, it looks like, not bicycles, that allowed them to make those longer legged characters. Yeah, interesting. Each of these look interesting, but it just isn't something you see in video games, and perhaps it is something that should happen more, is that you get new employees and they get to pitch a simple project, they get a mentor that helps them with that simple project, and then they learn the proper way things are done in the company and get a nice little debut project they can put on their resume. Whereas in a lot of ways, being a video game developer, it's fairly easy to have very little on your portfolio or resume when you're looking for that first job, or if you've worked even with one company but were just working on one game. Moving on, a game called Vernal Edge launches March 14th. It's a side-scrolling action game for seemingly everything. Let's see what this looks like. Skip ahead here. Skip ahead some more. So it kind of feels like a Castlevania platformer hack and slash game. With some fairly fast movement. Not really seeing a lot of enemies, considering how you're swinging the sword back and forth a lot. Alright, there's a little bit of that. There's a lot of ways games like this can be good, and a lot of ways these can be bad. Certainly, I played a game called The Vagrant fairly recently that looked something like this, and it turned out to be fairly bad in that you were just button mashing and hacking, slashing, and doing the same combos over and over again against enemies with giant health bars. It just didn't feel like it was particularly well written or well polished as far as a gameplay mechanic, and it was selling itself on hand-drawn and hand-painted backgrounds and hand-drawn animation, and even that wasn't particularly good in my opinion. Out-of-box World Spacer's Choice Edition announced for PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. This is a different image, certainly. Let's see if we can get a better idea of what the Outer Worlds look like. Yep. It is basically Fallout without being made by Bethesda, if I recall correctly. That's what I think the game is sort of, but it might actually be much more running and gunning than Fallout. They say it's a first-person shooter RPG game, but you definitely could make a game that's 75% first-person shooter and 25% RPG, or 75 RPG and 25% first-person shooter. It includes every piece of DLC and an increased level cap. In a lot of ways, it maybe is better compared to something like Borderlands. Let's see. Lies of P physical editions have been announced, due out alongside the digital release in August. Seems kind of ridiculous to in any way have made any assumption that there wouldn't have been a physical edition of this game. If anything, that feels like that might just be an example of this company not really being fully ready to publish a game that looks as big as this game looks. I wouldn't be surprised if Lies of P tries to be something like a weird Dark Souls competitor as an action RPG, but actually turns out to be fairly short and not as polished. Also, just looking at this cutscene alone, you have this potential suspicion that this might be very cutscene heavy, and it might be something like Death Stranding more than anything, where it's just a lot of cutscenes. So here's the other screenshot I saw as far as the Pokemon Scarlet Violet DLC, Hidden Treasure of Area Zero. You have one screenshot, a little cropped here, showing a very Japanese-centric theme, and I didn't even see the two Japanese style Pokemon here in the back. I only saw that guy. And then you have very much more of a futuristic sci-fi looking appearance here, unless this is supposed to be kind of Chinese centric, which I don't know if that's the case. You do have kind of a dragon here, so I could see it being Chinese centric here, and you still have kind of a Japanese coat here, but then over here you've got like a hoop skirt type thing, which this might be one of the extremely few characters that has a dress or a skirt, and even at that they have pants on under it, so you can still ride motorcycles. This kid's wearing pants, this kid's wearing pants. If anything, this might be a point where characters are a little bit older and they're wearing full pants instead of just shorts that are above the knee or right on the knee. But yeah, very distinct visual differences there. And honestly, I don't think the Pokemon Company, being a Japanese company, would make a DLC that is half Japan centric and or traditional Japanese centric and then half Chinese centric at all. I don't think they would touch a Chinese centric story at all for fear of being accused of being offensive or for being offensive. Honestly, yeah. China and Japan not on very good terms. So the more zoomed out screenshots shows some more Pokemon, but I don't think really shows much of anything else. Some more characters too. I wish Gamatsu would fix its screenshots so when the picture was too big, it wouldn't just center in the center like this, because you really just end up getting groin shots of all the people. Alright, well, we'll leave it at that. A game called Omen of Sorrow for PS5, Switch, and Steam launches March 23rd. It's a horror-themed fighting game coming to new platforms. It seems like there's already an Xbox One version, which will add a story mode at the same time that it comes to other platforms. This is a game I think I heard the name of, but obviously haven't seen much of it because it's been an Xbox exclusive. If anything, it feels very much like it's trying to be something like Killer Instinct, which, yeah, it's not like there are that many Killer Instinct games getting made. Microsoft really should be releasing a Killer Instinct game every 4 years minimum. At least one game every 4 years, because they own the license, and having some team somewhere inside of the massive corporation of Microsoft that is always working on programming, fighting, gameplay mechanics, that will pay off, because you could certainly have those same kind of fighting animations in cutscenes of non-fighting games, and the kinds of improvements in visual quality that you can get away with in fighting games, because they're not that memory dependent or CPU dependent. Some of those polishes certainly could happen too. Fighting games like Killer Instinct coming out via Microsoft could be very much like the not Rumble Roses Double X, Dead or Alive, DOA, beach volleyball series, where those games are created solely so they can polish the visuals and put some silly gameplay mechanics together to do beach volleyball with the DOA fighting characters, and that is just a way for them to practice before they make the next DOA game. Of course, the DOA games, the beach volleyball games, part of DOA, are not even being released in the West anymore, because so many slacktivist SJWs complained about them. When there really isn't even that much. It's just 3D models of the DOA characters in bikinis. Let's see. Our last Komatsu article for today says Trinity Trigger launches May 16th in the West. It launched in September in Japan. It's some kind of RPG game. All we have is this one screenshot, which, okay. Now, I did hear, as we now will try to burn fairly quickly through the games that came out on Steam, a description as far as CGI being pre-rendered versus, I guess, live rendered or in-engine. They weren't particularly talking about video games when they use the phrase pre-rendered, but it does make me wonder if perhaps I should use the phrase pre-rendered to describe some of the CGI elements in games. Particularly, I'm thinking in the adult games, when there are visual novels with CGI characters, but they're just still pre-rendered image of those 3D CGI characters. The problem with using that phrase is looking at a static screenshot, you never know what is pre-rendered and what is in engine. You'd have to watch the videos to even have a chance of guessing correctly on that aspect. We have someone on the chat who says, hello, Desirgisa Sari says hello. Sarai. I probably mispronounced that name. This final file Destined is rated pretty positively, so I'm going to make a YouTube short on it and put it on the follow list. Yeah. So yeah, I will, I suppose, consider using the phrase pre-rendered to describe things, but probably not use it too much. This scrappage, I'm going to give a chance to. Here's our first adult game for this Monday. This came out the 25th. So, Sex, Love, and Girls. It's 3D CGI characters. Exactly what I'm talking about, where these could be pre-rendered images still during a dialogue sequence, or they could be in full motion in-engine cutscenes, and there's just no way to tell. There seems to be a real gamer girl theme on this, I assume, visual novel. There's a rock character, there's a gamer girl character. So something interesting there for the ideal fake what's the ideal woman in the mind of a gamer. Inherently, I've never really bought into that idea so much. Sex, Love, and Girls is $3.27. It says it's English and with full audio, and it says it supports all 103 other languages without full audio, which maybe means it is. Seems like there might be some slide tile puzzles in the game too, on top of it being mostly just a visual novel. I'd say there's a male member whose member is really, really long, just anatomically incorrect, being depicted in several scenes. Yeah, and that may very well be a turnoff to certain players. It does happen fairly often. I imagine this is a Japanese game only. Yep. I never really bought into the idea, though, that I would be interested in a significant other who had the same interest as me. Particularly as a video game critic, I don't really feel the need to find somebody else who would play video games or be a critic. At a certain level, though, I could certainly understand that line of thinking. I definitely have run into a lot of people who you can't even talk about video games to, and they just have like no interest or no base knowledge of understanding for the decades of the culture that it has been to be a gamer. So it's basically like you're speaking a different language to some people when you talk about video games, and they just ignore you or nod their head and ignore you, pretend like they understand. Of course, I also have that problem way more when I'm talking about computer programming and computer tech and things like that. So, in the same way, yes, I could see wanting a significant other that has some small interest in tech or video games, and that probably is something. But if people actually care about you, this is an online PvP game. Interesting. Well, because it's a PvP game, I'm not going to leave it on the follow list. The person on the chat is asking to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. I've already stopped playing Yu-Gi-Oh! For today, so yeah, I'll leave it at that. But also, I'm not playing people, particularly today. Like, seems like people always want to play me at the absolute worst times of the absolute worst times. Today is the last day of the month. We have 23 hours, basically, and so I have no way I could spend extra time playing people when I should be playing ranked and getting the daily quest done before they disappear. Yep. Generally, though, I would suggest to give relationship advice, which I'm probably absolutely not qualified to give. You want to find somebody who cares about you. And if they care about you and they can consistently continue to care about you months, years, decades later, they will take time to listen to you and take enough interest in your interest that you could talk to them about video games and play video games with them to some level, or that they would watch you play video games a little bit and just take some interest in it. And it definitely is a two-way street there. You have to also take interest in your significant other's interest also. which at a certain level probably is something more to consider, because yes, eventually you are going to, if you got together, stayed married to the people, to the person for 30, 40 years, you're going to run out of things to talk about, and you don't want your relationship to boil down to talking about the weather or paying the bills or doing the dishes or taking out the trash or going grocery shopping. All those things are the mundane things that you still have to deal with, but you really, really want to have some things more in common that you can discuss. And so maybe finding common interests is something. At a certain level, if you are a heavy gamer, you probably will need to be less of a heavy gamer if you're starting a new relationship. But you also probably should come out and be honest about that and say, on average, I play this many hours a week in video games, and if that is a problem now, it's only going to be a problem later. You don't want to get a significant other who thinks they can change you and mold you into the person they want you to be, and you shouldn't try the same yourself. So put out some feelers, put out some red flags to begin with, as far as this is who I am, this is what I do. I don't plan on changing this for anything. Next, we have an adult game here called Futanari Stepsis, which you don't usually have the dick girl porn and incest porn fetishes overlapping. It's just a kind of low effort match 3 game with CGI 3D images, and honestly, there are times here where they're showing the character clothed, and there's just no way that the giant male member that her hermaphroditic body is showing would be fitting in her tight pants when she is clothed. So, yeah, there's no bulge at all. The game is $3.59. That's English only. I often have to question whether these games are actually trying to attract an audience, or if they are just trying to use key phrases that people might type in as a joke, or they're just trying to sell on shock value, or not even sell, just be shocking for no reason. Troll porn, basically just trying to troll, I guess, Steam's own website with ridiculous garbage games. Which, anything, it really just points out that we need good old-fashioned vanilla sex adult games. We need more of that to balance out all the fetish and weird games, the furry games. This game Nightly Trash doesn't look good. Lord of the Otherworld, is this an adult game? Some heroes are exposed or naked. Interesting. It's not in the adult section, but it feels like it is a lewd game. Definitely feels to me like this is a mobile game that's been ported over. All these screenshots are YouTube family friendly. It does look like it is just a city builder for the most part. But yeah, you definitely run into a problem here where if I was to try to play a game like this, first of all, it's got way too many currencies and it is just one of those mobile games. But if I was to try to play a game like this, the actual gameplay would probably be too boring to make content around. And even if the actual gameplay wasn't boring, the every now and then lewd image would potentially get flagged by YouTube. Maybe not. So it becomes a little too risky of a game. This is early access free to play with in-app purchases. And it does create an interesting question, certainly as far as YouTube Shorts. Should I cover games that look like cell phone ports as a YouTube Short? Is there inherently this weird different standard in which games are being need to be held to if it is a cell phone port that has been ported to Steam? Probably I shouldn't hold it to a different standard. Rebels Under the Spell of Magic, Chapter 3. This creates another weird situation, certainly, where do I want to make a YouTube short around something that's Chapter 3 in a visual novel? $9.89 English only. Death, nudity, sexual assault, non-consensual sex. Nobody's using the R word anymore, I guess. It definitely seems like there's some room for some nudity or some adult patch here. I'd say this probably isn't polished enough to make a YouTube short on. What I'd like to know though is the first game, Chapter 1 here, when did that come out? This came out in January of 2021. It doesn't look particularly polished enough, and I think that runs into the real problem here, is that you've got 3 games and you've gotten slightly better, but now if somebody was going to try and play the whole game, this would be a game that would arguably need a remaster, and yet it's visual novels, so they probably would never bother to do that. There's no adult content at all, according to this game, but honestly in 2021, they may not have really required you to describe the mature content. Yeah, on second thought, I don't think this deserves a YouTube short. I don't think we should hold it to double standards or different standards. I think we have to hold everything to the same standard as far as level of quality. Cell phone games are just going to have to get better when they come to PC or fall away to obscurity. Like most games that get released on Steam, which fall away immediately to obscurity because they are not quality. So much of this. Part of from Artflix. Parenting. Abusive parenting. Oh, I was trying to. I saw the parenting here and I didn't read backwards to the abusive part. And I'm like, why is the parenting a trigger warning? Covers topics like abusive parenting, which I think the phrase child abuse is probably better than abusive parenting. I think that somehow using this phrase gives the inflection of parenting being more child abuse being more acceptable if you're a parent and if you're doing it in an attempt to parent. Murder, torture. Alright, so this is a horror game. To me, it really just feels like it's an acid flip horror game. I'll give it a chance, but I'm not going to make a short around it since it doesn't have anything visually interesting there. like inherently my line of thinking is, if you're abusing a child, you're not parenting in any way whatsoever. You are completely 100% failing at parenting if you're abusing a child. There is no middle ground where you are 51% being a parent and 49% being abusive. No, I don't think that flies in my mind. This is a weird looking game, so I'm going to give it a chance. Inherently, the most complaints I've gotten on my YouTube shorts is people complaining about me suggesting normal games that people already know about, or popular games. So theoretically that should push me into the idea of doing weirder and weirder games, such as Pop Journey here. Cat girl outfits on a train playing a match 3 game. It's weird background elements to it and custom outfits, which is kind of weird too. If anything, this is really just showing how easy it is to swap out different textures in a game, in games like this, and just buy it. Partially naked clothing. So it's a match 3 game, it's English only, it's $2.39. That being said, it obviously is trying to have a lot of that anime cutesy influence with the different hairstyles, the cat ears, the French maid outfit, the Japanese school outfit. I saw that somewhere too. Yep. I'm gonna have to say no to this. Stellar Mess, the Princess Conundrum. This game is inspired by early EGA games of the genre, EGA being a color palette, and honestly this is probably not EGA, because there's EGA really can only have like 8 colors, and so even like having 2 grays is probably not realistically EGA. If anything, this just feels like an early LucasArts game. I'm going to put this on the fall list and make a short out of it, even though it is likely not much of anything. 307 Racing. Yeah, I'll make a shorter in it. Looks good enough for a racing game. Kitten lost her box. Yeah, I guess I'm being very generous today. These are games that came out on the 26th, so it's possible we aren't going to see much more adult games. Although this game does have an 18+ DLC to it. Let's see. 2D Magic Tower Experience is what they're calling it. What I'm saying is just a bunch of screenshots of flat anime girls. And then the actual game here is actually just a top-down 2D dungeon crawler. It's funny, it's rated very positively. It's English and Chinese. How many of these reviews are in English? 1. Only one's in English. So, if anything, this might be a Chinese game that is just super popular and well reviewed because of the massive restrictions in China. And if anything, that might be an argument around the problem of censorship in one country versus another, in that if this is as lewd as you can get, or if you can only get slightly lewder than this screenshot or this screenshot, or maybe in the 18 plus DLC you actually see some boobs here and maybe you see some butt cheek there. But if that's as extreme as your adult material can get, then you might have 81 people review a game like this positive. Now, another accusation that certainly could be thrown at any Chinese game is that you could probably get 81 Chinese people to review a game on Steam very easily just by friends and family reviewing the game. This definitely doesn't look like a game that deserves to be 98% positive. So I'm definitely going to skip it. But yeah, there is definitely a danger when people of different countries have completely different standards of the quality of games, whether the quality means the gameplay style or the audio style or the visuals or the amount of nudity you can show if it's an adult game. Like, that all changes things. I think we can say no to Vincent's horror story here. New Year break. Doesn't look like anything. We're almost done. Special courier. I think we probably could say no to that. Saying no to most of the games. I have about only 5 or 6 games of all the ones we've looked at today are actually getting YouTube Shorts. But honestly, even if I only got 2 games into YouTube Shorts, that would be fine. The Bride horror game doesn't look like anything. Virtual Families 3. This just looks like a Sims clone. Destructure among debris. And there might be something to this. You're playing Arkanoid basically while also doing kind of a tower defense and having more enemies shoot back at you. Potentially even turning it into like a bullet hell style game. Yeah, that's an interesting twist on Arkanoid. Just playing from the side is a little weird. Although in all fairness, it still feels like the right move in a game like this would be to rotate it and go upward on more of a widescreen. Because this does definitely feel like a game that you just want to rotate your whole monitor into a portrait mode, if you could. I Am Your President seems to be a management game of some sort. Well, it looks like it has enough, and it kind of feels like it's a management, almost board game thing. This really could be a low effort game, but yeah, I'll give it a chance. The Ouroboros King. We'll give that a chance. 2 more games to look at. Gatekeeper Eclipse. Fast-paced roguelite shooter. Looking at the screenshots, it looks like it has a chance of being good. Although it also kind of feels like it could very easily just be a mess of visual effects, which a lot of these top-down twin-stick shooters like to do. And last we have Colors Heartbeat. which doesn't look like anything. It definitely is a case where, well, as we were approaching the 26th and the 27th, Saturday and Sunday, no more adult games are getting released on those days. So we're now at the GameDeveloper.com articles. We already talked about Elden Ring and God of War Ragnarok sweeping the DICE Awards. Call of Duty's 2023 game is a Modern Warfare 2 extension. I think we talked about that. Nintendo won't be at E3 2023. All of these are old stories from GameDeveloper.com. Let's see. Baldur's Gate 3 in limbo on Xbox because of technical issues. Noticeably, it is worth pointing out, though, I've never heard of any other game say they're having technical trouble making a game run on Xbox 3. Inherently, if you can't get a game to run on Xbox, you're either pushing something really hard like ray tracing, or you're trying to balance it between the Xbox Series X and the Series S, which I have heard people kind of secretly complain about that, or you're programming something that is not using DirectX and not going to be much of a PC capable game in the first place. So if they're saying technical issues with Xbox and they're also releasing on PC, I would be a little concerned about how well the PC version of Baldur's Gate 3 performs. Pokemon Sleep gets a release window, proving fever dreams that come true. Right. And then we've got some follow list cleanup here to do, so let's do that real quick. Then we have Confessions of Candlewood Lake being a visual novel, which is not well received and not relevant. So we'll get rid of that. I could see potentially having this on the follow list because I wanted more of a Western art style, although I'd almost call this a Russian or French animation style more than anything. But yep, doesn't matter, it's not relevant. This Connect the Dot game isn't relevant either. Concordia Digital Edition as a turn-based tabletop game is rated 86% positively. So, is it out of early access? Yes. We'll put that on the wish list. Calm Pressure is just a pipes game, perhaps with some other things, other elements too. Yeah, it does seem like there's some other elements to it than just your standard pipe game. And it's very positive also. Has over 30 reviews, so put that on the wish list. Let's see. Commando Hero. I could give it some more time, although I do suspect at the end of the day this will just not make it. Yeah, I don't think the commando aspect here makes a lot of sense. So I'm just going to drop this now. People don't really want to play as commandos or military people, or even in military games. That's why Modern Warfare is almost exclusively the only focus now, as far as Call of Duty. But yeah, outside of a military shooter in particular, you don't want to play as military people. We are far past the point, at least in the United States, where jingoism or patriotism, whatever you call it, would lead to an actual worship of military soldiers, or being a soldier, or playing as a soldier. At best, United States citizens respect soldiers and thank them for their duty, but they tend not to think of them as superheroes or characters you would want to emulate yourself. This is that same animation style, probably from the same people, and it's getting the exact same result of being removed from the fall list. Color patterns came out January 2022. I think I could probably say no to this. It has only like 3 reviews, and in my language is 1. Only one solution is considered right, even if other solutions are actually correct. Alright, that's an easy no then. And then Color Guardians has only 18 reviews, and I think it's just not relevant enough. This is probably a kid game that I was hoping would be more relevant, but nope. Some of these games also potentially would be reasonable at their lowest price and are completely unreasonable at their main sale price. Alright. So let me turn back Yu-Gi-Oh! So we can do a duel live, and then that'll be it for this stream. Not particularly the longest stream ever, but I'm getting a little sleepy, so it does make some sense to end there. And then because I opened a new window, I need to now pop up the old window to get back to my Twitter thing. And then I'll scroll down my Twitter feed and see if there's anything new as far as new news that's happened since I've started streaming. Let's see. Unity for Games. Best Practices for Unity User Interface Part 2 blog was put out. If you are trying to make a game for mobile using Unity, which I would recommend using Unity if you are trying to make a game for mobile. And in a lot of situations, I think Unity is probably your right choice regardless. Apparently, Paradox Interactive has partnered with Xbox for a game announcement show. New titles from Colossal Order, the makers of City Skylines, Harebrained Schemes, Shadowrun Trilogy, and Rod Humble's Paradox Tectonic will be revealed next week. So, not only is E3 missing the big 3, Paradox Interactive seems to have decided to partner with Microsoft and Xbox, and I guess more Xbox than even Microsoft, as they're selling it. Here's a cosplayer in a Misty outfit. They'll give you a peek here. She's not really that big of a popular character to cosplay these days, but she definitely was one back in the day. In part, Misty has been missing from the Pokemon anime series for long enough. There's a 2B cosplayer here that I don't think is YouTube family friendly, so I won't show that. 2B has been incredibly popular for 2 or 3 years, ever since Nier Automata came out, and she's stuck the landing, I think, a lot more. I suppose it is just a complicated system or an immeasurable system, really, of you have a character like Misty in Pokemon who captures the hearts of Pokemon fans, and when they grow up and become horny teenagers, people start cosplaying Misty from that. And then you have 2B, who was designed to be a ogled out character in the first place, and designed to be lewd and sexually attractive, and that makes an easy cosplay for lewd cosplayers to do. It's worth mentioning, I didn't mention this, I should have. ScumVM has version 2.7.0, and it's adding shaders to the video output to add things like scan lines or round CRT geometry when designing games. With these new shaders, you can get a different look on some of the old ScumVM games. I don't know if you're going to get much of a different look, though. I mean, there really is only so far you can go down that route. Like, most of the ScumVM games were tiny, low-resolution, pixely images in the first place, and you're dangerously approaching a point where you would have to just use something like artificial intelligence to remaster the games, or just remaster the games in the first place. In all fairness, I guess if I was Microsoft, I probably would try to buy the rights to a bunch of the old ScumVM games and just make remasters on them completely. There's plenty of them out there, and just moving everything into a CG 3D image would make a lot of sense. They have done that, certainly for like the Monkey Island games. I could also see Embracer Group doing that. It looks like PAX East is March 23rd through the 26th. Maybe. I'm not even sure. You would think there would be more talk about that. The Godot engine release candidate 6 is ready for extensive testing. If you're a programmer, that means something. If you're not, that probably means nothing. But yeah, overall, there is not a lot going on here. As far as new news. So, in honesty, I'll probably fall asleep. In my hopes and ambitions, I will get in the next 22 hours all of these done. I can definitely get 3 solo modes done fairly easily. The biggest ambition and hope certainly would be to get our dual rank up to platinum, but I don't think I have a high chance of that. Alright, well, that's going to be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.